One of the endless debates in photography world is about lenses, and apart from the sharpness and the low light possibilities of a lens, the unconditional reason is that the general look you get from each lens is different. Different focal lengths change the feel of your photographs. It's more than just zooming, shooting from a distance, or getting closer. It's about how you connect with the scene and how your viewers connect with your story. While the decision to shooting wide or shooting tight ultimately is up to you, these two approaches are fundamentally different, and today we'll explore exactly that. I always say that a wide lens is the lens of the participant, and a tight lens is the lens of the observer. You can argue with that statement, of course, but let's see what I mean by it. First of all, distance matters. A wide lens forces you to get closer, and the feeling from that wide shot is like you are in the scene. You can almost smell it. The photograph has intensity. When you shoot wide, you tell the story of the object and its surroundings. That adds a lot of narrative to the viewer. You're right there, you're immersed in the moment, you become a participant. It creates a powerful emotional connection for the viewer, as if they're there right beside you. This participant feeling creates a stronger impact on storytelling. It puts people into the emotional core of the photograph. But when you shoot tight, typically with a telephoto lens, you're further from the scene, and that distance, it's felt. It's like you're spying, observing through a window, mostly unnoticed. You're not disturbing the scene you're trying to photograph. With tight shots, the photograph is less about the environment and more about the subject and his emotions. And you can feel these emotions in the shot. That distance gives the feeling that the subject is experiencing the emotional state alone and you are just there to capture it. So let's speak about the wide framing first. In photography, wide framing can be understood both literally and conceptually. Wide framing means thinking about your photographic decision as a part of a larger creative vision. It means composing a photo in a way that it includes more of the scene, often using a wider field of view, and placing the subject within a larger context. Wide framing shots aren't necessarily done with a wide lens, like 24mm to 40mm full frame equivalent. That's just the most natural way to do it. Wide-angle lenses offer unique advantages when used at a moderate aperture like f8 or f11. They give you a surprisingly large depth of field, keeping both the foreground and the background sharp. This is great for capturing multiple points of interest, and the keyword here are narrative and context. You have more opportunities to add visual interest points that support your storytelling. It simply encourages the viewers to explore the image, not just focusing on one single point. And that's priceless, and for many photographers, very addictive. It is very hard to go back and shoot tight images with limited elements when you're used to orchestrate an entire scene. However, with all that background and extra information, things can become a little bit challenging, especially if you're a beginner. You kind of get overwhelmed by becoming responsible for too many elements in the scene. Unlike with telephoto lenses, you can't just blur your way out of the visual mess. You need to frame very carefully and be mindful on different elements that can weaken your image. You need to make sure that the image isn't too complex to read and understand. And figuring out the right amount of complexity is something you will have to learn by yourself. There is definitely no rule invented for that one. It mostly comes with experience and when compositional knowledge grows. Of course, we can achieve blurred backgrounds with a wide lens as well, but you will need to get incredibly close, often within half a meter, 1-2 feet, which can be impractical in many shooting scenarios. So you will have to develop a habit of checking your background and surroundings and be like a policeman, deciding what is allowed to enter the frame and what is not. To make things easier at the start, perhaps focus on cleaner backgrounds. They're usually easier to work on, and later on, when you gain more experience, you can handle more complex ones. Wide framing is excellent for capturing the scene's overall atmosphere. That extra space isn't just for your subject, it's for the entire environment. You can include as much of surroundings as you think are needed. And look at this photo, for example. The woman praying is the subject, but the smoke, the birds, the light, they all contribute to the sense of place, immersing you into the moment. In general, composition-wise, wide framing makes all geometry elements stronger. Every line, every shape has a meaning. Wide-angle composition becomes demanding skill, but when mastered, it's incredibly rewarding. It opens the door to dynamic compositions, allowing you to work with diagonals, layers, foregrounds, and background for depth. This extra space gives you freedom to arrange the scene in ways that tight framing just doesn't. But that's also a tremendous challenge for less experienced photographers. Organizing the geometry can be a nightmare, almost impossible for a beginner. You might prefer using a telephoto lens with a lower aperture to avoid dealing with all these overwhelming elements. Wide framing allows you to emphasize juxtapositions, relationships, and interactions between people, animals, or other elements in the frame. While this is possible with a telephoto lens too, it just feels different and it's often harder to capture. Plus, the wider field of view allows you to react quicker and capture quickly changing moments effectively. You see something happening and you can point your camera almost instinctively. With tight framing, you might need to be more mindful of your distance, and it might take a little bit longer time to compose. And since capturing moments is core of street photography, shooting wide angle with the right camera settings help you to stay prepared for anything. Wide lenses are also your best friends in crowded streets or tight alleys. They allow you to capture a broader view even from a closer distance. Well, that makes sense, right? But let's see some examples of photographs done with wide framing. In street photography, the frame can include buildings, cars, and other elements, not just the main subject. You feel the city rhythm, not just the individual. In environmental portraits, for example, instead of tight headshots, you show their surroundings, telling more about the person, not just their face. And even in landscape, you can photograph a hiker in a mountain range. This will emphasize scale and the feeling of solitude. By the way, that photo might be shot at 70 millimeters, but framing is still quite wide. I decided to take a wide portion on the scene to add more narrative. Now, let's see what tight framing brings us. Tight framing means filling the frame with your subject, usually with one or two subjects, just occasionally more. You do it either by moving closer or zooming in. Shooting this way minimizes background and context to draw maximum attention to the subject. Tight framing is usually done with a telephoto lens. Of course, you can do tight shots with a wider lens too, but it's more natural with anything above 50mm full frame equivalent. It's that compression effect and the distance you have from your subject that creates a completely different feeling from wide shots. Think of it like this. A wide framing is like a big party when you're trying to squeeze as many people as possible into a small room, while tight framing is like a small gathering of close friends. It's like entering the same party and focusing on an intimate situation between just few people. A tight shot minimizes background distractions. Telephoto lenses excel here because their shallow depth of field makes it easier to isolate your subject, making them stand out. And since we are not focusing on the surroundings anymore, we just go straight to the story. As storytellers, with a telephoto lens, we can slice through layers of chaos and extract a single piece even from the middle of the action. Tight framing lets you zoom in on intimate details, transforming the scene into a focused narrative. This isolation isn't just about removing distractions. It's a way of telling a story. It fosters intimacy and creates a silent dialogue between the viewer and your subject. It works great for street portraits or capturing the essence of a single figure. And one of the biggest differences in terms of how images feel with tight framing is that tight shots lets you capture details often lost in wider compositions. Subtle emotions on a face, a small gesture, a specific detail that you want to highlight. While some of these can be shot with a wide lens if you get very close, telephoto lenses give you the ability to do that from a distance. And of course, okay, the aesthetic of long lenses with blurred backgrounds has something special in them. This is something that phones still struggle to reproduce properly, and it's often perceived by non-photographers as very professional and artistic. You don't have to shoot wide open with tight framing, but the tendency is there. Using low apertures with tight framing is still a valid and beautiful approach. You can of course shoot wide scenes with a long lens too, but you will need enough distance to fit everything in. Still, most people use tight framing to isolate small groups or single subjects. That kind of approach can give you photos a unique character. Let's see some examples. In street photography, a tight shot, a hand gesture, someone facing a crowd, or a person lit by a smoke or light. The effect of this is a moment of emotion with less environmental distractions. In portraiture, we can photograph a close-up of a face, even with the edges of the head are cropped out. The effect of that kind of shot will be to draw the attention to the eyes, wrinkles, or expressions. That creates sense of closeness. We rarely get that close to people, but the telephoto lens gives us that experience. In landscape photography, we can slice through the scene, focusing on a single branch or a detail in a vast place, just focusing the attention to something smaller that can still hint on the bigger happening. Your lens choices, your framing choice often reveals your personality. Some photographers prefer to be observers, using telephoto lenses to capture from a distance. Others crave that immersion, diving into the crowd with wide lenses, seeking interaction and capturing the energy. I'm kind of more of the second type. Fear can play a role too. Getting close takes courage, and I have a video somewhere here that talks about how to deal with that. But overall, there is no right or wrong approach. It's about finding the style that suits you personally and your personality. In general, I usually do not recommend putting yourself in a box, especially not because you heard something from somewhere. The truth is that you can shoot everything with anything in any way. Actually, going against the default recommendation is often what leads to truly unique images. I'm a true believer in personal experience. Don't work in a certain way because someone said so. Of course, listen, but then go and do your own experiments and see what worked for you and what you connect for more. Eventually, photography is about how you feel with what you create. Through these experiments, you might find something uniquely yours, and then you will become the person telling others what's the right way to do. So what's your preferred way of shooting? Let me know in the comments below if you found this helpful. Hit that like button and subscribe for more photography tips. And happy shooting! See you next time. Be happy!